If you're struggling in relationships and all the love scripts, meditations, and hours in talk therapy have yet to yield any results, then you're going to want to stick around for this video because I'm going to walk you through an experiential exercise that will tap into your body, exercise your creativity, and allow you to reframe your thoughts about how you show up to your love relationships from a radically different perspective. So often we think, once I find the one, all the pieces will fall into place and I can finally start living my life. But the enjoyment has to start long before that. Finding your center, feeling confident, and managing anxiety is probably harder than ever before. But it's not just the external circumstances that make it difficult to maintain your equilibrium when searching for connection. Our inner attachment wounds leave us feeling insecure and vulnerable to negative patterns in love as well. Healing your attachment wounds will help amplify your attractive energy, boost your confidence, and allow you to show up to your relationships as your most vitalized self, even amidst difficult circumstances. And so today's video is the last video in a series in which we have been exploring the embodied nature of attachment styles, specifically the effect of attachment trauma on your brain and nervous system. This series is derived from one lesson from my signature course, Healing Attachment Wounds with Mindfulness and Creative Arts Interventions. This course offers 7 creative, fun, easy lessons that will take you from feeling lost and confused about your romantic relationships to stepping into your fullest and most sovereign self without having to talk in circles around your feelings for hours or maybe even years on end with no tangible result. If you like what you experienced today and you want to learn more, you can access a link through the caption of this video, which will give you a special discount offer. But before I demonstrate one very effective technique for getting in touch with yourself and increasing felt security, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Briana MacWilliam, and I am a licensed and board-certified creative arts therapist with more than 15 years in the field, helping adults struggling with insecure attachment go from self-doubting to self-sovereign, so they can attract those soul-shaking, passionate partnerships that they want, without having to waste years in talk therapy with no tangible result. And I do this using a psycho-spiritual approach to creative arts interventions through the framework of attachment theory. If you would like to learn more about your attachment style, I invite you to check out a link in the caption of this video. It will take you to a quick and easy 4-question quiz. Now, before we dive into today's exercise, first I want to clarify that becoming increasingly secure in your attachment style does not require that you are already in a relationship or even that you are actively seeking to be in one. Relationships are just one dimension of experience in which we can see how your sense of felt security manifests itself. And so the goal for today's activity is really just to introduce you to the inner you and to attempt to ground you in the inner space. I'm here to remind you that you do have an inner landscape and that to live a balanced and fulfilling life, you have to learn to walk in both the inner and outer worlds. Felt security is an internal, subjective experience of what I call self-sovereignty, which you bring to any and all relationships, including your romantic ones. Now, the benefits of felt security are best exemplified by increased clarity around what is your intuition versus a reactive attachment impulse, increased clarity around automatic negative thoughts that may be influencing decision-making on a subconscious level, increased clarity around the intensity of survival and safety concerns in relationships, increased clarity around your own values and how highly you prioritize them, increased clarity around emotional boundaries and how they function for you, increased clarity around defensive coping mechanisms, an increased ability to identify and name complex internal feeling states, increased ability to use metaphor and symbols to organize and explain felt experiences, increased confidence in decision-making abilities, increased ability to discern compatibility with a partner or a potential partner, so you don't feel like you're spinning your wheels learning the same old lessons all over again. Experience has taught me that it is not hard to learn how to connect in an emotionally authentic way when you have a deep understanding of your attachment wounds and how to work with them. But it can be difficult if you don't have the right tools and or you have no pre-existing models for it. And that's why I've created my online course, Healing Attachment Wounds with Mindfulness and Creative Arts Interventions, because it works. What do you feel brought you to wanting to purchase a course like this?
Yeah, when I looked at the course and decided to enroll, I was very much looking at stopping unhealthy patterns that I've been repeating all my life in intimate relationships.
Yes, I have been married for about 9 years now. I've been with my husband for 15, and we were going through a real rough patch of stuff, and it seemed to go on, and I couldn't figure out why.
Probably like a lot of people here, I was frustrated. I was really irritated with myself. I know what's going on. I just can't, why can't I feel the way I want to feel?
What would you say are maybe 2 to 3 things that you feel like you gained out of the course?
Being able to do it on my own time frame and having the Facebook group and everything to be able to express some of the stuff that I want to say and then get answers and feedback.
I would have to say, just starting from the very first one with complicated grief and understanding how to process the grief.
There was an exercise where you have us actually do a relationship timeline.
Looking at the emotions, looking at where they are, looking at the colors, that helped me know what I actually felt, because I actually didn't know how I felt.
I would say number one, I gained validation. That was really important for me because I felt like I was going crazy.
Why I was doing things the way I did it was so enlightening to me, because everything else I had tried to figure things out on was like, okay, so this happens, you should do this. But it never told me why, and I'm a why person.
If you have any guidance or advice for someone, what would be your advice for them?
Do not hesitate. Definitely take this course.
This program has done for me in 7 weeks what years of therapy and self-help books didn't do. I would say that in the past 7 weeks, the people that have known me have definitely seen a big change in me.
It is definitely worth the investment.
This is hands down the most helpful course. And I'm somebody who's been in therapy for 4 years. Like, this is hands down the most helpful course I've ever done.
So let me explain a little bit more about the MacWilliam Method, which is my approach to healing attachment wounds, and why it's so different. The Mac Method is founded on the principle that self-mastery evolves out of a continuous loop between conscious awareness and creative expression. This loop uses 3 practical tools to maintain its momentum: cognitive reframing, body activation, and arts-based experientials. To stimulate and activate your intellect and your creativity, which is usually a strength of people with attachment wounds, I provide psychoeducational tools and tutorials to help you reframe your experiences on a cognitive level. This helps you rewrite painful narratives into positive statements of belief that honor your values and create an openness to receiving the love you want. With body activation, the body is the first organizer of experience, and thus a tremendous role to play in the resolution of attachment wounding, particularly in cases of severe trauma. With a blend of guided imagery, basic movement, and sound healing, we gently titrate all that anxious energy stored up in your body and neural pathways surrounding your attachment experiences. This creates enough spaciousness in the body and in the brain to build new neural networks in a healthier framework using the language of the body and the unconscious. It's through the creative expression that we stimulate our life force, harness intention, apply insight to action, and begin reconstructing our realities. Externalizing the inner world with a sense of mastery and self-sovereignty is how we dialogue with the true self and summon the strength to change what we can, surrender what we can't, and have the wisdom to know the difference. Arts-based experientials facilitate this process. Now, to give you a taste of the MacWilliam Method, today I'm going to share a clip of a grounding exercise that I shared with my students inside of our private Facebook group. This is an example of a practice that you can add to your tool belt for learning how to access and ground into a sense of self-sovereignty and affect increasing feelings of felt security, whether you are partnered or not. And one of the goals for this training is to create a way for you to really get more of what you really want, and to do it with grace and ease and to the benefit of everybody involved. So for today, we're going to talk about how to identify and express feelings with more of a robust vocabulary. And we're going to get to the root of this, get to the root of your feelings and how to articulate them using an arts-based experiential activity. Before we can form words, right? Before we can form words to articulate our feeling states, if we have attachment wounding, it's likely that we were not afforded let's say, an optimal environment that would help us to recognize and organize our feeling states on the internal level. Because usually there's a lot of emphasis on what's going on around us, right? We have to attend to what's going on around us so that we can position ourselves in such a way that our needs are met. And it's usually that we are in an environment in which it may be difficult to get our needs met. So there's a lot of attending to what's going on outside of us and not a lot of attending to what's going on inside of us. And yet, the body is actually the primary organizer of experience. And the way that it organizes those experiences, a la Piaget, if you want to know about cognitive development theory, is symbols. So your body starts to organize information on the psychic level through symbolic organization. Okay. So like, for example, if you have some attachment wounding and you go into a therapy session and a counselor or a therapist says, well, tell me, how does that make you feel? For someone who hasn't had adequate early attachment experiences of attunement and co-regulation, they haven't had an opportunity or been able to play and explore things in an abstract and imaginative level, then they haven't quite formed yet an adequate vocabulary on a symbolic level. And when that is the case, it's a lot harder to formulate a more robust vocabulary on an emotional level, because the words are built upon this symbolic foundation. And this is not to say that your ability to utilize symbols as a way to organize your psychic and emotional content stops once you learn words. But sometimes if we persist in an external orientation, it can. But they can both start to weave together so that your expression of self, whether it's words or nonverbal communication, become a very beautiful and intricate tapestry of and dynamic expression of self, right, of who you are. So today, for this activity, I want us to play with this a little bit. So if you are someone who feels like there's one word for how you're feeling today, we're gonna use the body, and we're gonna use symbolism, and we're gonna use nonverbal exercise, creative exercise to tease this out. I'm just gonna grab a handful of markers here. Okay. So there's 6 steps to this, and we can do it together. If you're not able to do it right now, you can come back and watch this on a replay. So the first thing I would like you to do is to just kind of take a deep breath. Just center into your body. Just noticing that with every breath that your lungs and your ribs and your chest expands. On the next breath, you might breathe it all the way down into your belly and into your abdomen, really opening up some spaciousness inside, just recognizing that you have an inner space. And I like to imagine that with every breath, that inner space just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And you come to recognize that your inner space is just as, if not more vast than anything you might witness with your eyes. And once you connect with that space inside, just noticing in your awareness, it might be in your body, it might be in your mind, it might be an energy floating somewhere over here, but just noticing if there is an inquiry. And when I say an inquiry, it could express itself as, an anxiety. It could express itself as a stressor, or it could express itself as a curiosity, a question. Maybe there's a decision on your plate. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantically related, but that there's a quandary, there's a seed of something in your experience and in your life in this present moment that is kind of resting with you, or maybe it's restless with you. And I would have you just notice this inquiry, I'm going to call it, or this phenomenon. And I would have you imagine, you might feel it, you just drop that inquiry, that phenomenon, that question, that anxiety, that stressor, or that decision, just kind of dropping it down into your body. We're going to use the body as our map for today. And you might have an immediate reaction in your body that tells you where it lands. As if the body were a landscape and we're looking for where this thing is buried in the landscape, where would it be? If you're someone who struggles to connect with your body, that feels like you feel like you're drawing a blank or it's just static, that's okay. Actually, it's more than okay. That's really good information for you, because that can point you in what direction you would go. And probably that would be top-down processing. But for today, just imagine Just take a guess. And usually it would be the first thing that pops into your mind, right? Unfiltered, uninterpreted, just the first thing that pops into your mind. Where might that be in your body? Okay. So just notice it, and you can kind of take a breath, take a snapshot of that in your mind, of that witnessing. And we're not going to go into a deeply meditative state because we're going to be a little more active today. So you can open your eyes. And I would like you to choose from your colored utensils. You will need colored utensils for this. I would like you to pick a color that you think most closely represents that inquiry, or that stressor, or that decision, or that anxiety. A color that stands out to you. And it may not be a thought, it might just be an impulse. You might find your hand just reaches for a color first. Notice if it feels right. If it doesn't, just put it back. See what else your hand reaches for. Or you might just know right away. You might have a conscious association with it. So I first chose brown, didn't feel right. Then I chose a darker burgundy red, didn't feel right either. Then I chose this bright orange, feels right. So now what I would have you do is I would have you just express that color on the page. And this brings me to the second step, and that is assign a shape to it. Doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be a square, a circle, a triangle. It could be a scribble. It could be any shape in the world that you want, but assign a shape to that. So I'm going to the way I like to do this is I know I want this color, and you could either decide the shape first, or you could allow the shape to emerge just as your hand is moving on the page. I'm going to let it emerge. But if you need containment, I'm pretty practiced in this, but if you need containment, I would choose the shape first and then color it in. So I'm getting some satisfaction out of just like making these quick strokes like this. It's very satisfying to my hand right now. So I'm just letting it go. And it's also like my hand is kind of telling me what this shape is going to be. So I'm going to go with it. But again, this is what I'm doing right now. This is more of a bottom-up processing because I'm accessing energy in my body and I'm letting it inform how my mind or my consciousness is going to follow along. But if you're someone who's top down and this feels a bit foreign or scary, then I would just have you, like, looks like I'm making a circle here. You might just draw the outline of a circle and then fill it in. And that's okay too. That might be more of a top down process. So I've got my shape is kind of a circle here. And I do feel a desire actually to go back to the burgundy and to contain it or encapsulate it or boundary it. But I don't want to go all the way. I just had a little impulse to leave an opening. So I'm going to leave it like that. And if you find yourself having impulses emerge as you go through this process, follow them. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just, offering these loose guidelines so that you can start to access some of your own wisdom. So the next thing I would have you do now is consider that inquiry, that phenomenon, that question, that anxiety, wherever it lives inside of you. We've got a color, we've got a shape. What if there were a line associated with this? Just a line, any kind of line. It could be a scribble, it could be a zigzag, it could be a thick, heavy line. Is it long? Is it short? Is it jagged? Is it dashed? Is it dotted? What kind of lines would you associate with this? I want to use a dark blue. So now we're sort of layering these things on top of each other. So now you can pick different colors if you want, right? I'm going to choose a dark blue. And I feel compelled to make a dashed line, kind of spiraling out from the center. And it's kind of an accelerated line once it gets further out. Now it wants to change shape. Now it's more flowery. And I just want to keep going, so I'm going to keep going. Okay. So my line kind of evolved as I drew on the page, and maybe yours does too, and just let it be that. Now, the other thing you might notice at this is more something you'd notice, because at this point you may have already created an image, right? So just noticing, like, how big is it? How much of the page is it taking up, right? How much of the page is this process taking up for you? If you were to imagine, like, if I were to draw, or identifying where in the body it might be, if I were to draw a representation of my body, how big would this be in comparison to my body? So for me, I think it takes up the length of my torso. I would say it's the length of my torso. Give myself a little head. The long arms. So how big is it? How much does it encompass you, right? How big is that energy, that charge in your body, that emotional, affective experience that you're having, okay? And only two aspects of this left. If your image, if this quandary, this phenomenon, this inquiry were to make a sound, what sound would it make? Now, you can make the sound if you feel comfortable doing that in the privacy of your home or wherever you are. You might make the sound, or you could associate sounds with it. So for example, it could be an instrument. Maybe this image makes you think of like violins, or maybe it makes you think of like hard rock, right? Maybe there's a song that pops into your head, right? Or maybe there's a way of, or if this image that you've created were to speak, what would be the quality of the voice? Would it be a booming voice? Would it be a quiet voice? Would it sound very staccato, right? Or would it be a melodious kind of rhythmic voice that comes out of this, right? So you could just write little notes next to it, just to remind yourself. You could create more lines to represent the quality of sound. For mine, it feels very bubbly. And there's two songs that come to mind. The first is Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. And the second is Señorita by Shawn Mendes. So what are the sounds? What are the sounds that you would associate? And you might even make those sounds. Like after I do this, I might go listen to these songs, right? And lastly, I would have you consider movement. If you were to, wherever you identified it in your body, if you were to place a hand there and you were to allow the movement in your body to stem from that place, what would it look like? This is kind of a play on authentic movement. So for example, mine's like my whole torso. So if I were to make contact with my torso, I've just got my hands on my torso, right? And I'm making connection with this phenomenon, right? We're adding color, we're adding line, we're adding shape, we're adding dimension and composition, we're adding sound, and now we're adding movement. It makes me like, I find myself kind of wiggling a little bit like a snake. And then I want to make these like circles. And then I kind of want to do this like, almost like a breath of fire thing a little bit. I kind of want to do this. And then I want to do like heart melting kind of movement, right? And just noticing like, how does it make you want to move? And then think about, what is that movement like? Is the movement constrained? Is it more of a rigid, jerky movement? Is it a fluid movement? Is it a movement that is very rhythmic? Is it a movement where you can't find the rhythm? You could also imagine, if you're not comfortable accessing your body in that way, you could imagine if this phenomenon were to be a real figure, how would it walk? You know, how would it dance? How would it hold its body posture? Would it be concave? Would it kind of hold itself in? Would it be wide open? If it were to enter a room and sit down on the couch, would it spread it everywhere, or would they fold their legs and kind of jig their foot, right? So starting to bring this into the realms of movement. Now, all these images and things that I'm conjuring, this is just one feeling, sensation in your body, inquiry, phenomenon that we accessed in the beginning. And now there's all these different layers and dimensions to how you experience and might express that one thing, right? So what I'm trying to illustrate through a creative activity here is when you say I'm feeling good, or you say I'm feeling bad, all of this is going on underneath that. So when we do practices like this, now we start to access some of the subtleties. And so for each of these 6 characteristics, color, shape, line, size, or I might call it composition, sound, and movement, I would have you assign a feeling word. And if it's too difficult to assign a feeling word, assign a descriptive word. So for example, my color is kind of a reddish orange. If I were to assign a feeling word, I would say excited, activated, aroused, awake, alert. Alert is probably a better feeling word than awake. Awake is a state of being. It might be, in this case, it's not anger. That's not the feeling I'm accessing. Maybe anticipation. So I'm just going to put anticipation, excitement, and joy just came to me. Just felt some little tears popping up a little bit. I feel very joyful today. Aww. And then the next thing I might look at is the shape. So I've got this circular shape. What are the words I associate with round objects or things that are circular? Well, circles help me feel contained. Circles help me feel focused. They roll, so I associate them with ease. And centering, similar to focus, but I'll just call it something else. And maybe grounded. Right. So then you might take a look at the line. So initially it started out kind of a dashed line, but it was spiraling also in a circular motion. And then it became this more bubbly kind of flowery shape. So the line to me also feels a bit excited, maybe a little disconnected, maybe a little unfocused. So this is where we start to notice our ability to hold ambiguities, right? There's a part of me that's really focused, and there's a part of me that's maybe not so focused. So noticing that there might actually be some friction and or contrast going on within me that might be worthwhile looking at, right? What am I struggling with when it comes to focus? Yeah, we could probably leave that there. And then looking at how much of my body does it take up? Well, it's taking up like my whole torso, basically. So it's a big feeling, right? It's a big feeling. There's a lot of information there. And like, for example, if I were to, and I might actually after this, do some authentic movement to kind of work it out on a body level to just maybe move some of this energy in these directions so that I can balance my chakras a little bit more, right? And just explore what comes up for me through that. But it's a lot. It's a big feeling, so it's worthwhile looking at, right? And then taking a look at the sounds. I already mentioned there were a couple of songs that came up for me and how it would move, right? So if I were to think of these songs, those songs make me feel bubbly. They make me feel sentimental. They make me feel excited. They make me want to dance. Romantic. And romantic is really more about hopeful and dreamy. I've just started dating someone, so this is a good day. And then taking a look at movement. So my movements felt fluid. Let's put over here. My movements were fluid. Smooth, maybe. There was some rhythmic. I'm also in a short area here because I'm trying to stay on camera so that we can do this demo, but I think they would still be a little contained, even if I were standing up in a big room. I think I would still be moving very close to a center point. Like maybe I would actually be spiraling like this. I just made that connection. I would be spiraling like that around a center point, but it wouldn't be big. Like I wouldn't be hinging at the hips. It would be in the center, like in the heart space around the spine. Oh, I just got a lot of insights. Not ready to share them publicly, but that's good. So also centered. Again, grounded. Makes me think of gravity. So these are ways, the goal of this is to help you understand that there are some creative ways that we can get at what are our feeling states, the more subtle layers of our feelings, in such a way that it's creative, it's fun, it's expressive, and also it's going to cue you into some of the more subtle sensations you may be having. And when you can become aware of these things, it's going to make it a lot easier to connect with someone on a more intimate level because you are more aware of the intimate layers of you. Now, if you have participated in today's exercise, then I invite you to join my private Facebook group and post your images. You can also tag me for feedback. In this community, you will find a lively discussion of attachment-savvy individuals who are also motivated towards expanding consciousness. Voltaire, the French historian, writer, and philosopher, once said, "Happiness is the only thing that we can give without having, and it is in the giving that we receive it." I interpret this to mean that a loving relationship has to start with you, with the choice to love yourself undeniably, even when all the messages you have callously received would seem to indicate the opposite. A loving relationship starts with putting yourself first, caring for yourself as if you had a defenseless child inside of you, because you do. And that child needs love, nurturance, and protection, and sometimes maybe even a little nudge to pick themselves up again. When we beat ourselves up, or demand better of ourselves, or abandon ourselves for what we claim is the sake of a partner, we tell that child inside that they're not good enough and we neglect their needs. And we repeat a pattern of dismissal that has been handed down to us sometimes from generation upon generation. The truth is that the most crucial information that you will need on this journey already exists within you. The only reason the MacWilliam Method is so effective is because it helps build a bridge between you and you, your own soul's inner wisdom. Once that happens, your energy glows with authenticity, and you light up like a beacon for all to see. Boundaries become clear. Healthy discernment and decision-making comes easily. You feel revitalized by your own passions and pursuits, and you cannot help but become a super attractor of high-quality partners. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video series on healing attachment wounds. Again, if you would like to know more practices like these and/or how to expand upon them, I invite you to learn more about my online course, Healing Attachment Wounds with Mindfulness and Creative Arts Interventions, by clicking the link in the caption of this video. And lastly, remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. I put up videos once a week, and I wouldn't want you to miss out.